A single heartbeat echoes, then fades. Silence fills the air. In that instant, everything you know, your thoughts, your memories, your entire existence, hangs in the balance. 1 second after death, the body surrenders, the heart stops, breath vanishes, and the world slips away. Yet, this moment is not just an ending. It is the most mysterious transition known to humanity. Scientists say the brain may flash with a sudden surge of activity, a last burst of energy, as if the mind is holding onto life with all its strength. Others describe a tunnel of light, the sense of floating, or the voices of loved ones calling them home. Is this the final dream of a dying brain, or the first glimpse of another reality? The truth lies hidden in that fragile second when life and death collide, asterisk, when the heart stops beating. It sets off a chain reaction inside the human body. Blood no longer circulates, oxygen ceases to reach the brain, and within seconds, the cells that once powered thought, memory, and emotion begin to shut down. To most doctors, this moment is the definition of death, the point at which the body can no longer sustain itself. But modern science paints a far more complex picture. Research has shown that brain activity does not end instantly. In fact, some studies reveal a sudden surge of electrical signals in the seconds following cardiac arrest, a mysterious wave of energy scientists call the death surge. For a brief window, the brain may be more active than at any other time, firing patterns similar to those seen in dreaming or deep meditation. This could explain why many people report vivid visions or heightened awareness during near-death experiences. At the same time, the body itself begins its slow collapse. Muscles relax, skin cools, and chemical changes prepare the body for its final state. But within that first second, you may still hear faint sounds, sense light, or even experience a final rush of clarity. Science tells us this window is brief, perhaps less than 30 seconds before unconsciousness takes hold. Yet, in that fleeting moment, the boundary between life and death remains strangely blurred. What appears to be an ending may, in the mind's last burst of activity, feel more like the beginning of something extraordinary. Asterisk, for centuries, people who have stood at the edge of death have returned with stories that defy explanation. These are the near-death experiences, visions, described so vividly, so consistently, that science struggles to dismiss them as mere hallucinations. Patients report leaving their bodies, watching doctors and nurses fight desperately to revive them. Some describe drifting through a tunnel of radiant light, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace, as if they were being welcomed home. Others speak of hearing voices, familiar, loving, guiding them gently onward. In many accounts, time itself seems to dissolve, replaced by an infinite moment of calm clarity. One woman claimed she hovered above her hospital bed, observing every detail, even the color of the shoes worn by a surgeon in the operating room. When she recovered, her description was eerily accurate. How could her mind record such details when her brain, by medical standards, had already shut down? Scientists argue that these visions may come from a brain starved of oxygen, firing wild bursts of imagery as consciousness fades. But millions of people across cultures describe nearly identical experiences. Are they simply the final sparks of a dying mind, or a glimpse into what lies beyond? Near-death experiences remain one of the greatest mysteries in human history. They blur the line between science and spirituality, forcing us to ask, when the body ends, does something far greater begin? For as long as humans have existed, death has been the ultimate question mark, and every culture has sought to answer it. What happens after that final breath? The answers vary, but they all share one truth. Death is not seen as an end, but a doorway. In Christianity, that doorway opens to judgment, heaven or hellwhere. The soul is rewarded or punished for the life it lived. For Muslims, the soul crosses into barzakh, an unseen realm that separates the living from the eternal afterlife, awaiting the day of judgment. In Hinduism, death is simply a pause before rebirth. The soul returns again and again, be shaped by karma until it reaches ultimate liberation. Buddhists, too, see death as part of a cycle, where consciousness transitions into a new existence. A reminder that endings are also beginnings. Yet not all beliefs promise continuity. Atheists and secular thinkers often argue that death is absolute, irreversible silence where consciousness dissolves. To them, the 1 second after death is simply nothingness, the closing of a book with no final chapter. Still, there are cultures that see death as a reunion. Ancient Egyptians prepared elaborate tombs because they believed life after death mirrored earthly existence. The Aztecs envisioned multiple realms, where the soul's journey depended on the way one died. Across faiths and philosophies, the first second after death is not empty, it is filled with meaning. Whether it's judgment, rebirth, reunion, or silence, humanity clings to the belief that death carries us somewhere. And perhaps it is this universal longing for continuity, for purpose, that keeps the mystery alive. Darkness, silence, and then mystery. 1 second after death, science tells us the body begins to shut down. Faith tells us the soul moves on, and human stories suggest glimpses of light, peace, or even eternity. Yet the truth remains hidden, locked behind the one barrier no living person can fully cross. Perhaps the final surge of brain activity is nothing more than biology. Perhaps the visions of light and loved ones are the last sparks of a fading mind. Or maybe, just maybe, they are windows into a reality far greater than we can imagine. What we do know is this: death is not simply an ending. It is a bridge between what we understand and what we cannot. For some, that second after death is the beginning of eternal silence. For others, it is the doorway to forever. And until our own final moment arrives, the chilling truth is this: no matter how much we study, how much we believe, or how much we imagine, the first second after death will always remain life's greatest secret.